Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Cassidy. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. And if you're here for a TBR. Honestly, looking at the stacks of books in front of me, and I say stacks plurally, I remember why I do not mood read anymore, and why snakes in TBR stacks is a thing. How do people mood read each month? Like, my pile of possibilities is humongous! So, to start this off, let's talk about Knock It Out November, because I am hosting a readathon in November, and that's why I'm mood reading. I know those don't go 2 and 2, but here we are. If you haven't seen the announcement video, I'll link it down below for Knock It Out November. This is a readathon that is not your typical readathon in terms of the fact that it's all goal-based. It's not necessarily prompt-based. You set yourself some goals and you achieve them. You can achieve them any way you want. It's like setting yourself a pile of possibilities for each, I guess, prompt or goal. And the idea is that you achieve goals that you've been like really needing to get off your back so that you feel lighter at the end of the month. You can go into December and January, start a new year, feeling a little bit more like you achieved some things. But that's pretty much it. You read some books, you reward yourself, and the idea is to mood read for each of these goals, which has led to me being very overwhelmed by all the books I want to read for each of these goals. But let's get right on into it. It's been a long time since I did a TBR that I didn't have snakes and TBR stacks. I do have some required reads for the month. One of them, oh god, I lost it in this pile. Let me put that down for a second. The first one being my Patreon read-along pick. We are doing a read-along for the Threadlight series, so I do have to read the second book in the series. I do not own a physical copy of it, so I'm holding up the first in the series. But the second is called Stones of Light, I believe is what it's called. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Overall, I didn't really enjoy book one, but as an indie debut, I think that the problems I had with book one could really drastically improve in book two. And looking at reviews from book two compared to book one, I do think that is something that happens. I'm very excited to be reading an indie series and such a popular indie series with a bunch of my patrons and Mel's patrons. If you want to participate, we do read-alongs bi-monthly and buddy reads bi-monthly, so you get a buddy read essentially every single month. This month is the read-along time. Once we finish this series, we will be starting a new series. I feel like I made that overly complicated for all of you. It is open to my second tier and up currently, which starts at $5.50 Canadian a month. Yeah, we have a Discord, we do some live shows. It's a lot of fun. I feel like I really just started this video out with like a Patreon plug. I'm sorry, I feel like I don't normally do that, but it's a required read. The next required read is also a bit of a Patreon plug. Who am I? Oh no! I try not to plug things on this channel too hard because I get very annoyed when people plug things too hard. So I'm sorry that this is what's happening. I actually have to read my Cup of Chaos pick. So my top tier patrons get to pick a couple books to go into the Cup of Chaos, which I pick out from every second month essentially, and I have to read. So last month I did pick out a poll, but I didn't read it, so I have Gunmetal Gods by Zamil Akatar to read this month. I'm not sure I'm getting to this book this month, which is really scary, but I need to. Otherwise, it'll pile on till next month, but I need to get to it. It is a required read. I'm excited for this one, and it is an indie, so spoiler alert if it's a goal. Also, how cute is this mug? Bobby got it for me for my birthday, and if this doesn't scream me, what does? It says, "I'm not a bookworm, I'm a book dragon," and I love me some dragons. I need to find like a dragon sweater. That'd be super cute. And my last required read is the Late Night Crew unofficial official book club pick. This one barely counts. It's super easy. If you don't know, me, Mel, and Rye, we host something called the Late Night Crew. We have a big Discord. It's public. It's down in the description bar. And every single month, we choose a book to read. The thing with this book club, quotation marks around it, because it's very unofficial. It was just brought out by the idea that we had so many books in common that we all wanted to read, and then we just invited everyone to read it with us. There's no live show, nothing like that, but once a month we do go on sprints all together and read that said book. It's a lot of fun. We all try and read at the same time, obviously, and we have a Discord chat for the book, and honestly, it's one of my favorite ways. It's the best way to do a buddy read, in my opinion. I have so much fun reading at the same time as people, trying to like pace yourselves together, so like the reveals are happening at the same time, and you're like chatting in the Discord like, oh my god, what? So last month we did a thriller, so this month we are doing a fantasy romance. We try to like mix it up. We do read a variety of genres all together. This month is The Kraken Sacrifice, which is actually book 2. We did read the first book in this series, quotation marks, last year during Readathon, so in April. It wasn't a pick, but we just all read it and we had a really good time, even though some of us didn't like overly love the book. It was just like a fun read, and it's super short. It's like less than 100 pages, I think. So we decided to do book 2. The thing with this series is I'm 90% sure that you can read it without having read book 1. So I think a lot of people are joining us for book 2, even if they weren't around for book 1. And if you missed some kind of context, we're all just going to give it to you if you want it. It's very quick and easy. It's a lot of fun. It's like monster smut, essentially. Yeah, that gets you my reading taste. It's all over the place. This is going to be a long TBR. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink. This is coffee, but I kind of wish it was wine. That's the end of required reads, so let's get into my TBR. Oh no, I forgot to tell you about any other read-alongs. I'm not participating in any other read-alongs because of what I wanted November to be for me, but I might, this is not true. I may end up participating in Final Book Support Group, which is the last week of the month, just because I think it aligns with one of my goals really well, so I may end up participating in that. If you don't know what that is, Final Book Support Group is a readathon about reading final books in a series and supporting each other. It's hosted by Steph from Steph Loves. I will link her announcement, her channel, in the description. The other readathon that I know about, and I'm really sad I'm not participating in, is Once Upon a Readathon, hosted by Hannah Blackwell. This readathon is, so in-depth. Hannah created her own fairy tale around this readathon. She has 16 co-hosts. There's teams. You go on a fairy tale journey. I have a lot of friends who are hosting this, and so I'm really sad that I'm not able to participate. And yes, I could technically participate, but after October I just needed such a flexible month, and I know myself when I participate in a readathon, specifically a team readathon, I have to go all out. There's no holding back.
I better win.
So I decided that this would not be the readathon for me, sadly, this month. If there's ever a one again, I definitely will be participating, and I definitely think all of you should participate if you're looking for a readathon. I'll leave Hannah's announcement video and her channel in the description bar so you can go check it out. It's so cool. It's really well done. The graphics too, amazing. Okay, but now we can get into my goals. Oh my god, this video is so long. I'm sorry. The first goal I'm going to talk to you about is to participate in my own Patreon readathon. I'm going to tell you this just because this one will probably determine most of my reads. You will be seeing a vlog for this last part of my Patreon readathon. My Patreon readathon was 10 months long, and we're in the last final month, and so what it is, it's essentially buzzwords in a word search. It's really confusing right now, but in the vlog it'll all make sense. So I have to find I have to go through a word search, find a buzzword, and that buzzword will determine my reads, and there's 10 buzzwords in there. So my hope is to read 10 books this month, and they'll all kind of be determined by those really, really stretchable buzzwords. But that is my first, and I would say mandatory goal. I really want to participate in it and do it well, but that's why the pile of possibilities is also so big, because buzzwords. The next goal I'm going to talk to you about is the one that I know for sure I'm doing, which is to binge read a series I've already started. Now, I'm not going to go into depth about what any of these books are about because I have a lot of books to talk to you about. The piles are unreal. But there's 2 that are very, very strong contenders for this, and then a bunch that are I should get to. The first one is the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I read Malice earlier this year, really early this year. I have no idea how I haven't got into this, but I know I want to binge read them all, and it'll probably be an all-time favorite series. So I need to get to this. It's a chosen one trope and classic fantasy, but it's done so well. And I just love Corbin. I need to get to these. The next one is the last 2 books in the Greenbone saga. I read Jade City not that long ago, absolutely adored it. Somehow haven't got into these, and I really need to get to them. I remember Jade City being a really, really quick read, so even though these are chunky, I think I will fly through them. The Greenbone saga follows, it's like a fantasy mafia with the magic system of using jade. It's really fun, it's really unique, and I really need to get to these. I don't even own the last book of this series yet, but I need to get it. It is The God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks. I adored The Black Coast last year. My literal Patreon is based around the baby dragons and the land dragons in this, and I loved this book. I've heard not so great things about book 2, so I've been putting it off. But there's a literal bookmark in there for where I started it. I need to get to book 2 and book 3 because book 3 just recently came out. I need to read these. I loved the first one so much. How have I not finished this? As someone who calls myself a binge reader and a series completer, I have failed at that this year. Y'all other people on booktube have started to wear off on me. The Chorus of Dragon series by Jen Lyons. I have the last 2 books of this to read. Another all-time favorite. It, literally one of my favorite reads of last year and even the beginning of this year. How have I not read this yet? How? I don't understand. I read them so quickly. I have 2 more books that I need to read in the series. This one's a convoluted dragon, chosen one, gimmicky story. These chunkers. These ones are so freaking chunky. That's why I don't think I'll get to them. The Legacy trilogy. I need to get to these last 2 books. I need to. I loved Legacy of Ash, but they're just so chunky. But yeah, I can't even tell you what Legacy of Ash is about because it's such a descriptive plot and story that in 5 seconds it's so hard to describe, but I really adored it. I think that's all I'm going to talk to you about that specific prompt, just because I'm pretty sure it'll be one of those, although I still have the Rain Wild Chronicles to finish as well, and I think a couple other series. Actually, I'm pretty good with that. I think the Rain Wild Chronicles is the last one that I would have to talk about, but it's way over there, so I'm not grabbing it. My next goal is to read a review copy or an ARC. I actually don't have too many of these. I do have the last book in the Burning Blade and Silver Eye to review. I have an ebook ARC copy of that. It comes out early next year. I've adored this series. I have a feeling that this will be the book I get to. This is not it. This is the second book in the series. But this is gay fantasy Star Wars, and I need to get to the last book. I need to finish a series. I need to adore it, and I need to be able to review it for you so that when the last book comes out, I can tell all of you to binge read the series. Other than that, these are all technically review copies. None of them are ARCs, but all review copies. If I were to read any of these this month, it'll probably be Shadowless by Randall McNally, just because it is the review copy I've had the longest. All of these are indies, so you will see them all come up again in my next goal. But yeah, I've had this one the longest, so I think that this would be the only other contender. So it'll be one of 2 books for that goal. Nice and simple. But technically, these are, so I would count them if I end up not being in the mood for these 2, but I'm in the mood to read gay fantasy Star Wars, let's be honest. I'm never not in the mood to read gay fantasy Star Wars. It's just a thing. My next goal is to read an indie. I read so much indie that I had to put this on the list, even though I feel like it's unfair because I pretty much read indie every single month. First off, the second book in the Threadlight series and the Zamil Akatar that I have to read are both indie, so mandatory reads are indie, and they'll cross this off the list. But to make it harder on myself, I'm maybe it has to not be a required read? Who knows? So, I forgot to tell you about a series. This is coming way later. Another series that I might binge is the Trader's Blade series, The Great Coats, because I still have to read the 2nd and the 4th, and not the 2nd and the 4th. I still have to read the 3rd and the 4th, and Jade has been yelling at me to finish this series for I don't know how long. I need to finish it. I really adored the first 2, so I don't know how I haven't gotten to it either. Actually, I do know how, because it really annoys me that they're all different sizes. Okay, back to indies. I have a lot of indies that I could read. Not only do I have the 6 books I just held up for you as review copies, but I have all of these bad boys too. This isn't even my entire indie collection either. I have more. I specifically have a lot more coming because my SBFBO finalists are starting to arrive at my door, but those are happening in January, so I'm not including those in this goal of mine. Out of this list, I don't know what I'm most interested in, to be honest. This is a complete pile of possibilities. There's also so many indies that I have available on KU and have on my KU TBR that, I don't want to pick up the other ones to stack them on, but I could because it's a thing. There's also a lot of horror indies that I want to read. I want to read an indie, not a fantasy indie. It's not the goal to read a fantasy indie, I just want to read an indie. I do own all of these. There's also Hunting Adeline, which is a dark romance indie. I know Stolen Tongues is a horror indie. I think Darcy Coates is an indie horror author, but I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of indies that I want to read, including the other ones that I just showed you. My next goal is to read a spooky book. One of my goals for the year was to read more horror, because I really enjoy horror. People probably don't know that as much about this channel, and I read more horror between October and February than I do other months. The other months tend to be more heavy in fantasy. Once February hits too, I tend to get into a dark romance, fantasy romance a little bit. But I do want to read more horror, and I've been failing at that goal for the year. So, although I did really good in October, I want to keep the momentum going, and so I want to make sure I pick up a spooky book this month. Now, I'm really heavily leaning towards a Darcy Coates. I think Kaylee from Kaylee's Books has said she might want to buddy read one with me. I think Mel might want to buddy read one with me. So I think it will probably be a Darcy Coates, as I really, really like Darcy Coates' writing and the atmosphere. I have no idea what Darcy Coates, but those are options. Other options I have are all of these. Not this one. This is actually technically a required read that I forgot to tell you about. I am buddy reading this with a friend in November, so I do have to read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I told you this TBR would be chaos. It's just all over the place. But I have these three. My sister has been yelling at me to read Stolen Tongues for about a year now, so this is a heavy, like, this one could be read. This sounds good. Horror Store is probably one of my TBR vets. I've owned it for so long. I'm just scared I'm gonna hate it, and, like, I don't want to get rid of this book because it's beautiful. Like, it's so unique. But, like, me and Grady Hendrix, so far, we're 1 out of 3 that I've read. And then we have The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I know Mel absolutely loved this book, so it's one that I really want to get to. So it's on this list of horror that I could get to. A goal of mine that's a little bit more out there for me is to read a short story collection, or try a short story collection. I don't typically read these things, but I have 3 here that I'm interested in reading and that I own. 2 of which are dragons. So we have Legends 2, which is just a bunch of dragon stories. This is 11 new works by the masters of modern fantasy, so these are like the really big fantasy authors. To be honest, I don't think all of these are about dragons, but there's a dragon on the cover, and some of them are about dragons, I believe. Yeah, we have a Romley Eldowing's book story, a Song of Ice and Fire story, a Pern story. The other is Wings of Fire, which is actually dragon stories by lots and lots of little authors. We have Holly Black, Orson Scott Card, another Anne McCaffrey, George R. R. Martin, Elizabeth Bear. We have so many big authors in this that I would be interested in reading their stories from. I just really want to try short stories. The one that is actually pretty much out of my comfort zone is these classic horror short stories. I bought it for a video idea that I had in October, but then time got away from me. But I would still like to try it. This is like your very classic horror authors. So we're talking H.P. Lovecraft, Bram Stoker, Edgar Allan Poe. Not my typical reads, but, like, I don't really know my typical reads for a horror, so I would be excited to try it. Horror is a genre that I don't really know what I love or dislike in it yet, as I haven't read enough in the genre. So this is up there. I think that this could be a fun way to try some authors to see if I will enjoy short stories. It's a journey that I kind of want to go on, as I know so many people love short stories. I want to love them too. So yeah, a goal is to at least try some short stories. I don't know if I need to read the entire collection, but I would like to read, like, maybe 50% of a collection, or just, like, a decent amount of short stories this month. It's also an R fantasy bingo prompt, so short stories for the win. Oh no, guys. My last prompt has the most pile of possibilities, which is to read an anticipated book. I'm thinking about Anticipated as a book that I've really wanted to get to, but just haven't gotten to. So it's not necessarily I bought a book and I'm super excited about it, although I guess it could be, but I'm trying to think about those books that, like, have been sitting on my top of my priority list for so long, but then somehow I don't pick them up. There are 2 for this that really come to mind, which is Deep Bladed Faith by David Dalglish and The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. I've been talking about these books on my channel for so long that I really want to read them. So these are really big possibilities. Another one is The Girl in the Mountain by Mark Lawrence. Mark Lawrence is probably my favorite author. I'm just putting it out there. I have at least enjoyed most of Mark Lawrence's books. The 3rd book in the Prince of Thorns series is a little iffy, but I love the Book of the Ancestor trilogy. I loved Prince of Thorns, and I really enjoyed the 1st book in the Girl in the Ice trilogy, so I really need to continue this trilogy. But I don't want to binge it, but I would really like to get to the 2nd book, and I've been talking about it forever, so. Another one is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin, another book that my sister keeps yelling at me to read. It's also on my These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 months list, so I really need to get to that because I think it's about to be 12 months. It's just really scary. It intimidates me for some reason, even though I really want to read it. His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. I was supposed to read this in April for Readathon and buddy read it with Mel, but that flopped. Mel read it, I didn't. It's a dragon book. I like dragon books. It's short. I want to read it. A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall. I have bought this one a really long time ago. It's a grimdark. I don't know nothing else about it, but I want to read it. Another TBR vet. Another Django Wexler, The Thousand Names, as well as A Shadow in the Summer by Daniel Abraham. Both books I would really like to get to. I told you we had a lot of books in this list. We have Dragon Quest by Anne McCaffrey, which is the second book in the Pern series, a buddy read I was supposed to do with Emma that I failed at, but I would really, really like to continue with this. I loved the first book in the series. I gave it 5 stars. It's a classic dragon tale that I really adored, and I need to continue it. This has been up on this list for so long, and yet it's so short. How have I not gotten to it? A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Probably surprisingly to some of you, I actually really adore the From Blood and Ash series. Yes, there are some problems with it, but it's just like fun popcorn read for me. And I have not gotten to the prequel series yet, and I have not continued the original series yet. So I need to get to this. And I want to get to it. I've been wanting to get to it since like February. So how have I not gotten to it? I don't know. An anticipated book. Like, I was so excited for these to come out that I have not gotten to. A sci-fi, Rabbits by Terry Miles. I waited and waited. Every single time I went into the bookstore, I looked at this book because I wanted the paperback because the hardcover was just way too expensive. So I waited and waited and waited until the paperback came out, and then I haven't read it. Like, I remember being so angry it was taking so long for the paperback to come out, and yet I haven't read it, and I bought it like 5 months ago. What is wrong with me? I want to read more sci-fi. I need to read this. Another sci-fi, Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. So short, such an easy read. I've really enjoyed Hugh Howey in the past. I also know Sand 2 just came out, and I loved the first book in that series, Sand. So yeah, Beacon 23 is a sci-fi that I really need to get to. I read Hugh Howey so long ago. I've had this book for so long. I must! You know what, there's a bunch of other books on my shelves that I could say fit this. This is the thing with this readathon, is I made it very open-ended just to get you some goals. Those are probably ones that I, like, really should stick to, but, like, Cytonic is also on there. Words of Radiance, but I ain't reading that next month, so I shouldn't say it to you. Like, there's so many anticipated books that, like, I've had on my shelf thinking, these are top priority, and then I haven't got into. And, like, God, this TBR made me feel really bad about my reading plans. How are there so many books? So little time! Ah! I'm having a mental breakdown just looking at all these books. Anyways, if there is a book that you saw in this batch that you would really like me to read, please comment it down below. Let me know. I will look at these comments. I will take them into consideration. I will hopefully read, not all, that's impossible, lots of these books this month, and make myself feel a lot better about where my reading goals stand when I go into January. This might have to continue into December. Like, looking at this pile, there are so many books. But anyways, yeah. If you're participating in Knock It Out November, please let me know down below. If you're participating in any other readathons, please let me know down below. If you made it this far into the video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me a time clock emoji. Like a clock, like the little time thing, something about time, because we're running out of time in the year. And if you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves an absolutely incredible day. I just realized I probably should have taken down the spooky decorations before I filmed a November TBR. But hey, I like them. Now I need to go clean all of this up.